This live stream brought to you by the Excelsior Citizen and these generous sponsors. Our Excelsior Springs Hospital, where better care is right in your backyard. The Simmons Sales Team, your hometown realtors.
Whether we're talking about our dedication to preventing and restoring power outages, our pursuit of safety, or providing the best member experience possible, we are relentless in serving our communities.
Find out how you can advertise with Excelsior Springs' #1 community resource. Visit ExcelsiorCitizen.com today.
You ready, Lisa? All right, we're going to get the meeting going. This time I call the meeting to order. I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. First by Jill. Second by Darren. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. If you will join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item up is entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda. First by Tracy. Second by Kaylin. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. Next up is our recognition and classified employee of the month, Dr. Boyd.
If it pleases the board, I'd like to recognize the Classified Employee of the Month Award for Mrs. Allison Gonzalez, the Cornerstone Recovery Room teacher, as the Classified Employee of the Month for November. From Mrs. Jessica Broadbent, we are proud to recognize Mrs. Gonzalez for outstanding contributions in her first year as our recovery room teacher. She has a remarkable ability to build strong relationships with students, offering guidance, encouragement, and strategies that help them successfully return to the classroom. In every situation, Allison exhibits grace under pressure, consistently promoting excellence, and in modeling a positive, solutions-focused mindset. So thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez, for the heart, expertise, and leadership you bring to Cornerstone community every single day. I would like to add, we learned a valuable lesson, I think, Mrs. Broadbent is in here. When the principal, superintendent, and deputy or assistant superintendent of HR walk into your room with a folder, people aren't exactly excited to see us. So we're going to get a balloon to start taking with us, so that way people know that it's a good thing, not a bad thing. So, but we're very, very excited to recognize her. She's very excited to have us there and be recognized. So thank her for all she does.
Get the get well soon one off the raccoon.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. All right, thank you. Any visitors? No visitors. We're moving on to F, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Bullen.
Back at it here. To please the board.
Oh, sorry. Went right over you there and I already marked it off. We're going to back up to D and do the MSBA delegate report and a great video.
There we go. There it is.
I was like, something changed. I just work here. Welcome to the November edition of the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report. We begin with a look at the 2025 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with MASSA and MOASBO. This year's event was once again held in Kansas City. MSBA President Shelley Mantell got the conference off to a great start at the first general session. During her remarks, she stressed the importance of local school board service.
When I was a student, and even though my father was a teacher, I had no idea there was a school board in the background guiding those places of learning. The work of school board often goes unnoticed, but our work is critical to the success of our districts. As leaders in public education, it is our greatest duty to ensure that our districts have the administrative and fiscal strength to provide the best possible education to our students. It is imperative that we advocate for fair and consistent funding for our children, that we represent the people who elected us, and that we take very seriously our fiscal responsibility to our patrons.
During the third session of the conference, Missouri's 2026 Teacher of the Year, Kimberly Sixto, was recognized. She told the crowd that whether you're a teacher, an administrator, or a board member, everybody has a role to play as a champion for public education and our students.
And that every single student deserves to feel success, every single one. And they deserve to have their potential recognized. So, I know when my students leave my class that they most likely won't remember the 27 amendments that I've tried to drill into them to be ready for EOC testing. I mean, there's a hope. But I know that they will remember how I made them feel. And I want that memory to be a good one. I want it to be something that they can hold on to and say, she believed in me. So, to all the school board members out here tonight, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the time you devote to our young people and to the education staff across the state. It doesn't happen without you. Thank you for working diligently to problem solve educational issues that often feel insurmountable. I know they do. Thank you for taking those late night phone calls from teachers who need help or the parents who have concerns. And thank you for fighting for Missouri schools and for the value of our educational system. This work doesn't happen without you. It doesn't happen without all of us.
Also during the third session, Suzanne Luther of the Jefferson City School District was presented with the Paul Morris Community Service Award.
But I do want to say I am so honored to be awarded this with this company because I feel that everybody who steps up as a school board member qualifies for this award.
And Seymour R2, Republic R3, and Hazelwood were all awarded MSBA Future Builders Early Childhood Education Program of the Year awards. In addition to the outstanding general sessions, the conference featured more than 80 concurrent sessions on a wide range of topics: Missouri's premier education trade show, the Education Expo, MSBA Student Showcase of public school programs, and much more. MSBA's Delegate Assembly also met in conjunction with the annual conference to establish the position statements that will guide advocacy work during the coming year. And finally, each year the Missouri School Boards Association's Future Builders Foundation awards $18,500 in scholarships to students in MSBA's member districts. A winner is selected from each of the 17 MSBA regions, and one overall state winner is selected. Student nomination forms are due by December 18th. Visit the MSBA website for more details. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thank you for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and we'll see you in December for the next MSBA Board Report.
Anything else there?
Unfortunately, I had to stay on with my daughter during the conference, and I know Brett did make the delegate assembly. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything else to add.
Yeah, I can just give a short update on that. Yeah, Darren and I were able to talk, and there was not a lot of consequence at the assembly, or a lot of consequential things. There were, I did vote, and I did want to share this since I voted on behalf of the board, to approve the advocacy position updates. There were 3 of them. One was around basically putting structure, as I understand it, around the updates to the funding formula when these reviews happened, and I think to make it a less haphazard process. There was one to make permanent the current limitation to allow retired teachers to serve as substitute teachers after retirement, which seemed reasonable, and one around like professional development for pre-K and early childhood programs. All seemed like a reasonable policy to advocate for, so I voted in approval of that. And then the Columbia School District, they wanted to submit a proposal around limiting payouts, like in the event of an administrative termination. I voted to advance it for discussion. I wanted to hear more of the arguments for and against, but it was a close vote, but they did not advance it, so it ended. That was the end of the meeting. So not a lot of consequence. It was interesting. I wanted to report what I did.
Thank you. All right. Can I move on to superintendent's report now, Terry? Yes, sir. Dr. Wilmore, you're up.
If it pleases the board, I would like again to try to share updates from around the district for November. So as we look here, just to update on revenue versus expenses in the operational funds this year compared to last year. So you can see this fiscal year is in pink, last year is in blue. So you have monthly on the left, revenue expenses year to date on the right. Some of these things that we've already discussed that causes that little gap. For example, the $300K in revenue from children's funds compared to last year, we just haven't asked for those reimbursements yet. The grant total from last year is the same as this year, so that will even out as we do that. We do have less delinquent taxes that we've collected this year, and that's just something that changes year by year based on delinquent taxes and how much individuals are paying. We also we're down about $200,000 in Prop C funding from FY25 year to date. That's just because Prop C funding per student went down this year. So that's being made up with more SAT funding later on down the road, which brings me to my next line. We're about $200,000 in state, down about $200,000 in state foundation payments. How that starts is if the total SAT is say $7,000, usually the state will start out payments in the month about $6,600, $6,500, $6,650, and then it gradually works its way then beyond $7,000. So you have the average of the $7,000, but they don't want to pay out too early, not knowing the state revenue is. So again, I'll try and give you little glimpses into the backwards nature of school funding as we go through this each month, and that's just a little piece of it and how that impacts us locally. We're also down about $100,000 in federal funds, IDA reimbursements. Same thing as with the children's fund. Those are just funds that we haven't requested reimbursement back yet. We have also not received all of our career center tuition payments from other schools yet, which is about $140,000 to $160,000. So those are all things that will help in the revenue or reimbursement area, which is what's creating that little divide there. We'll start receiving local tax effort. That's when you'll see a big bump in, they may not show in the equation here compared to last year, but you'll see a bump, and some of that start to close in December, January, February is really when we receive a lot of those local tax dollars. So you'll see the revenue and funds start to jump there. Looking at, just wanted to share this as we got our October count. October is a big month for the count for us and what gets turned into the state. So just gave some numbers there, and then I'll have the next slide we'll show just a little comparison compared to last year. So just some things to look at here. So attendance, as you hear our staff, and I'm going to dig into this next month with you a little bit more, go a little deeper. But our enrollment at the high school, 743, ADA 686. So on an average daily basis, so let's say we had 20 attendance days in October. On average, 686 of our kids are showing up of those 743 on an average day. Now the next formula that we'll talk about is 90-90, or the DESI formula that we also have our schools and principals share with us. That's how we're funded, is how many of our students show up 90% or more of the time. And so I'll show a comparison of that. For this time period, 80.5 of our students are attending 90% of the time. So at a very high level, we have, let's see, without the Job Corps, you have 2301 enrollment. Essentially, you're being reimbursed for 80.5% of those students. So there are some conversations at the state level when they look at the task force for funding that will be changed, and that will be something that we tap into a little bit next month as we go a little deeper on it. Just so you know, and so you look at that as we go through there. I'll slide on to the next slide, but I'll cover some data that's back on there as well. So this is enrollment trends, the negative numbers at each school are negative, which means we have less this year than last year. So September is yellow, so that's our most recent count, September, October. February is in the blue, that would be February of last year, we ended in the spring. Looking at the big case overall, We graduated a class of 180, which was a big class for us. Our kindergarten class is 140. So 40 students right there. We don't know if that's going to be a trend, if it's going to be a COVID blip, if people are continuing to have less babies moving on. That will be something that we have to continue to look at as a district and plan for if the next class coming in is the same as the 140, or if it bumps up to what we're traditionally at, which is between 165, 170 is usually where we're at per class. But that'll be something to keep an eye on because we are funded based on how many students are attending 90% of the time, but you can only have so many students attend that are enrolled. But that'll be a conversation we have next time when it comes to funding. I will say, had a good question asked, so we are at the free and reduced without Job Corps, we're plus 0.771%. So if you go back up here, the district totals without Job Corps, we are plus 0.8% than we were last year. So why that matters is the state average is 16.6%, right? So every student above 16% of our students, we actually receive a bump of 0.25% of the students. So every student that is classified as free and reduced, we receive a bump of 1.25 because as you look at the research and the state acknowledges, it costs more to educate a student that has less at home. That's just what the research will show you. Same thing if you look at IEP or student counts. So the state average says the top 10 scoring districts or top 10 achieving districts, this is what their average IEP rate is, this is what their average free and reduced is. And so then if you're a district that has more than that, you receive an extra bump per student on those things. So again, a little glimpse into budgetary things, how these numbers do impact us in the long run. As you can see, as we look at, the trend is down. We've heard a lot of conversation around Job Corps. I think a lot of their enrollment is down this year compared to other years because there's fear that it's not going to be open in order for them to complete those 12 to 18 month courses. So that's something I know Mr. Ruby's very involved in as part of his role as being that advocate for the Job Corps and kind of being that liaison between the district and Job Corps. We have students that have very good success stories that go through there. So we advocate highly wherever we can, any conversations we can be in for the Job Corps to maintain its funding. But that's going to be a federal level decision, I think, probably come this summer. P-card rebate. So as we talked last month, we're always trying to find out how we can increase revenues here and there. This is one way we do that. So we use a P-card, which is an MSBA. It's essentially a credit card. Those are things that we can use accounts payable on utilities, contracts like food service, transportation, fuel, food services, memberships. And so our rebate for last year totaled $5,796. So that was just money that we were already going to spend anyways. We used this MSBA backed P-card rebate to do it. And so we got a check of $5,700 back. So that's something we can put back towards staff and students and learning. To add on to that, I know Dr. Everett's been working with a Medicaid formula, so I don't think that we're capturing. What we're learning is we're not capturing all the revenue we could be receiving from Medicaid and some other avenues. So that's something she's working on, putting a system in place so we could start capturing more of that money. Again, revenue that's out there that we can capture, that we can put towards students and staff and learning. Just trying to do those little things to try and increase the pie as much as we can. And then just an update on strategic planning, stage 1. So those are going to be the evening of December 2nd, full days on December 3rd and 4th. That will really be a team of 20 to 25 members, communities, fire, city, hospital, staff members from throughout the district, both classified and certified, ministerial alliance, parents. And so we have a team of 24 to 26 right now. We'll go through that, and they're going to be tasked with developing district mission, vision, goals, beliefs, priorities, and goals. Mr. Ruby is serving as our internal strategic facilitator, so we're excited about that. We went through a very hefty training last week for about 3 days, and we were brain mushed by the end of it. So it's going to be a very good process that will be one of the most important things we've done as a district that's setting us up for the next 5 years, but it's not an easy process, and it shouldn't be. If you keep doing the same thing you've done in the past, you're going to keep getting the same results. And so what we're trying to do is expand our horizons and do great things for our kids and staff who deserve it. This is the first step of that, is working with our community to identify the most important things that we want to accomplish as a district. That phase 2 will be those action planning teams in January through April. We then take those 4 to 7 goals that bigger team has established and create action steps and strategies in order to meet those goals over the next 5 years. What you can expect from me is probably at the January board meeting, if we can get it done over that winter break time, is an overview of what the district team accomplished and priorities they set, beliefs. I'll give you a general draft overview. There won't be anything for approval at that time, but just to let you guys know what the group accomplished at that time before we get going on to action groups. And that's all that I have. Do you have any questions?
I have one. Can you tell me what we're doing, if anything, to support advocacy for the Job Corps, and if there's anything that we as a board can do, and how can we stay informed on how to support on the legislative side of that?
On the legislative side is tough because it's a federal level thing. I know they've had some luncheons. Mr. Ruby, if you have anything you want to drop in, I know we've had some luncheons and some collaborations at the center.
It is 99% funded national level, so any way you can reach out to the reps, any rep at the national level to encourage them to keep funding for it, because that's their only hope is that it gets back into the budget. Because right now it's not slated to get refunded, so I mean that can all change. But my fear is, I mean we still haven't approved the budget for this year yet. So even if they do decide to put it back in next year, that doesn't mean that it gets approved until after the June 30th date of when most of their contracts are up. So
we have some students, we are one of the rare ones that actually partner as a school district with the Job Corps. So when they are successful at the Job Corps, they actually receive an Excelsior Springs diploma. So I've told whoever will listen, I know I've told Mr. Ruby to tell whoever will listen, we would love to partner with them if it's the only Job Corps in the nation, and we'll continue to be the shining star of whatever we need to do. I don't know if that's falling on deaf ears or not. As things come up, as Mr. Ruby hears things, as I hear things, if there are specific people we can reach out to or things that we can do as a board, I will for sure share that with you guys to continue to advocate for that. I think we have some great success stories locally from that Job Corps partnership. And I think the more students we can get in there only expands those possibilities. So it's a great question.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to discussion items. First up is Dr. Comstock and the Lewis Elementary Building Report.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to come and update you on what's been going on at Lewis. I wanted to start off with a little data snapshot. This is going to show you our first round of data for STAR Reading and STAR Math. We're currently in the second round, so we don't have those scores yet, but you can see where we started off for the year. After each round of testing, we meet with our grade level teams and we really look at growth. That's been a big focus for us this year. So we're talking about identifying kids at all achievement levels that are showing low growth so that we can make plans to help push them along. We want this just as much for our on and above kids as we do for our kids that are performing below grade level standards. We also celebrate and recognize our classes that fall into the high growth category after each round of testing and our students that show high growth. So we're really working hard and hope to see this show up in our next round of scores. A big goal for us this year for attendance is 90% of our students having 90% attendance or better. We have an attendance council led by Mrs. Amy Brinker and Mrs. Kristen Verdi, and they are identifying students that are on the bubble, so really close to 90% attendance, and they work hard as a council to put interventions in place to help those kids meet their attendance goals. You can see one of our kindergartners modeling up there in the picture of the attendance hero cape. So this is just one thing that kids can choose as an incentive if they meet their attendance goal. He had a great time showing off for us and modeling it. But we're really proud after our first round of interventions, the kids that we targeted met their goals and showed growth. So we're excited to see this continue to grow. Another piece of data that we like to talk about is our positive office referrals. So at the time that I turned this report in, we had 30 positive office referrals. This is when teachers recognize kids that have done great things, whether it be academics, kindness, social, emotional. And then Mr. Travis and I get to call home and brag on the kids, and it's really fun. So you can see Kennedy there in the midst of her phone call home to brag on the great things that she did. So we're hoping to see that number continue to go up as the year goes on. Our building leadership team chose 2 focus words for this school year. Those words are grit and joy. This is something that we work on with our staff and our students. We know that one of the essential ingredients to success is being able to stick with something even when it's hard. And so we're working on with our students on grit. And we also are really trying to point out and help them see that there's a lot of joy that comes from sticking with something when it's hard and accomplishing it. So helping them to see the connection between grit and joy. We're also working hard to be intentional with seeing joy every day. Mrs. Como, one of our 2nd grade teachers, likes to say, you have to stop and appreciate the little bits of wonderful that happen every day. And so we really are trying to do that as a staff and with our kids. Like, there's a lot of joy that happens every day. Our 4th and 5th grade classes in their common areas have joy buckets, and so kids will write on little slips of paper things that brought them joy, and then on Fridays they read that out. So really just trying to recognize, if you take a moment and stop, there's a lot of joy that happens every day. We also have a fantastic Tiger Connections team led by Mrs. Cindy Flanagan and Mrs. Leslie Morey, and they love to plan fun activities, whether it's a Taylor Swift themed dress-up day or a food bringing day. They just really work to bring the fun and joy. And I have to point out Mr. Rea, because he is a constant source of joy in the mornings, whether it's a song, these girls will attest, whether he's singing a song to them as they arrive or has a joke. Or screams Happy Friday. Come on a Friday morning and you'll hear Mr. Rea. So we really are working hard just to show the connection of hard work and recognizing the joy in our building. Academic success is the top priority we have, and we know that we've got some work to do in this area to help our students see the achievement results that we want. So we've identified some areas that we're working on to help lead to growth. The first one is just intentionality with instructional strategies. We know that at the heart of student achievement is effective teaching, and that these instructional strategies are the tools that teachers use to get the most out of kids through engagement and thinking. So as a building, we celebrate when we see teachers using those strategies. It might be through a button. You can see the pictures of some of the buttons we pass out, a shout out or a door sign. I think it means the most to teachers when other teachers are giving them buttons for using instructional strategies or giving them a shout out for doing those instructional strategies. So we really are trying to be intentional about recognizing the hard work that our staff puts into planning with those strategies in mind. Another focus for us is vocabulary. Our literacy response team, led by Mrs. Maggie Carr, has been working hard to support literacy and vocabulary. We've talked a lot about, as a staff, about the importance of talking up to kids and using that sophisticated language, and then seeing and hearing our kids use that language just because they hear staff using it. We're also making sure that we are explicitly teaching vocabulary. So vocabulary has been a huge emphasis. Science, I can't speak enough of our building leadership team and the work that they're doing in science. Mrs. Sam Johnson leads that committee, and they truly are responsible for making science a priority and a building-wide commitment. They have decided to focus this year really hard on analyzing and evaluating data. So we're not just doing science, but we're learning from what we're doing so that we can revise and improve. And it truly is a good example of grit and joy. The kids work really hard, and it's been fun to see. Another area of focus is promoting the productive struggle. So we have discovered that sometimes we like to rescue students a little too early or provide a little too much support. And so we've been working hard, this goes along with grit, of giving kids just the right amount of support without doing it for them. because this shows up in test results. If they're very dependent on the teacher and reliant on the teacher when they sit down to take a test, they don't know how to persevere and do that. So we've been working really hard as a staff and as a building to promote productive struggle and provide that just right support for our kids. One of our core beliefs is that school should be a place students and staff are happy to be at. And so that comes through a collaborative climate and culture, something that we work hard on every single day. We are blessed to have a ton of teacher leaders at Lewis. They approach everything in a solution-focused manner, and they help lead change. So they're not only helping lead change with academics, but with behaviors and social emotional. They look for ways to support each other, whether it be stepping in to model something that worked with a student the year before, or bringing fun. They just really work hard to support each other. I have to talk a little bit about Bianca, our goose, Mrs. Slough has brought to our school. So she dresses up in lots of different costumes and has songs that she plays at arrival. So that's just another example of some plays that we have brought fun to the building. We have a new student leadership team led by Mrs. Morey and Mrs. Thompson. They are just getting started, but have already accomplished so much. They have worked with Mr. Travis and the PBIS team to create videos to teach behavior expectations of areas that we know we need to work on. They have so many ideas. I met with them just the other day and they listed off all the things, so I cannot wait to see what they do. Connections and relationships are a big part of making school a place that students and staff are excited to be at. So our building leadership team has worked hard to build connections through buddy classrooms. So each classroom has a buddy classroom and each student has a buddy that they work with. And once a quarter they get together and do science together to work on our building focus. And our first quarter experience was so great for teachers and students, and it has really been a great learning opportunity for us. And now that we have a building of our own, we are really excited for what our Family and Community Involvement Committee can do. We have the space and the opportunity. We've already had our very first fall festival that was a huge success. We had lots of families come. This morning we had our Veterans Breakfast, where students with veterans got to bring them in, and that was just a lot of fun. So this committee has a lot of great ideas also, and we can't wait to do more. My staff hears me say this all the time because I truly believe it. When this group of people up here put their minds to something and work together, like, the impact is incredible. They are truly committed to doing what's best for kids and for each other, and they just live out the motto every single day of cultivating kindness and academic success. And I couldn't be more proud to work alongside them. So at this time, I'm going to bring up Mrs. Brooke and Mrs. Slough and a few of our girls on the run team to talk to you about their season.
Hello. My name is Michaela Brooke, and I was one of the coaches this season at Lewis for Girls on the Run, along with Coach Slough. Girls on the Run is a fun, evidence-based program that inspires girl empowerment by building confidence, kindness, decision-making skills, while also increasing levels of physical activity. We had 13 girls participate this season, and we brought 4 of them with us tonight to be able to tell you guys all about their experience. So I'm going to turn it over to them so they can share.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Crowder. I'm a 5th grader at Lewis Elementary and a part of the Girls on the Run team. Our focus this year was on our board cards. We started each practice with a team builder to get to know you activity. Each practice had a lesson that taught us social emotional skills. After that, we did stretching and trained for our 5K. We ended every practice with our team chant, which you will hear at the very end of our presentation.
Hi, my name is Davina. Girls on the Run taught me a lot of things. The most important thing I learned is having a bull card. It helped me understand all of my emotions, how to think before I react or speak.
Hi, my name is Alana Bello. Girls on the Run is important to me because we learn how to have empathy with others. It's important to always be kind and respectful and try to relate with others from the far, but you also don't want to not try. On Sunday, we participated in Girls in the Run 5K. I started out really nervous and iffy about the 5K, but practicing made me feel better. And now I can do it. The 5K wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. The first mile seemed long because it was cold. The last 2 miles felt better. Training outside helped me. Now we would like to add with our team cheer. Girly, girly pops!
Thank you very much. You did a 5K this past Sunday morning?
Yeah, it was
a little chilly, wasn't it?
We bundled up.
All right, next up is our Early Childhood Center MARC update. Dr. Everett.
Yeah, I don't really have any large update from what we sent you originally, but just kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about where we're at with what we know and some of the things that we still don't know. So we work with the Mid-America Regional Council, which is MARC Head Start. So MARC, not that mark. And so they're a wonderful partner for us, but Head Start runs, their fiscal year is November 1st through October 31st, which doesn't always align super well with our fiscal year. But because of the government shutdown right now, they have not been awarded their financial grant for this upcoming fiscal year. So what that means for us is we get just over $349,000 from them a year. So our Early Childhood Center has both a full day or an all-day Head Start program, and then our other classrooms are half-day programs. So those half-day programs are funded through, the 3-year-olds are funded through Title I preschool, and the 4-year-olds are funded through the MOQPK, which is the Missouri Quality Preschool Grant. So we have all these different funding sources that come in and make up our ECC. We continue to be told by the MARC staff that they are anticipating this fiscal year being funded, even in hopes that it's November and it's moving along and they haven't been funded yet. They have like our regional council has voted to use reserves, and so we are still getting support from our regional Head Start people. Like our coaches are still coming in. The thing that I think is really important to understand about Head Start is it's not just the money. It's not just that they give us $349,000. With Head Start, we get coaching for our staff there. We get mental health supports for our students. We get nutrition support for our students. And so in the big picture, the hope and plan is that Head Start gets fully funded and we are good to go and we run everything business as normal. And so we've really appreciated that your support of saying, even though we don't have this funding right now, we're going to move forward and continue to run our program just as if that funding is here. If for some reason the funding does not come through for, when we're planning for next year, it doesn't mean that we will just reduce our preschool by half, right? We just have to then look at what is our plan for funding it. We could look at increasing our half-day programs and having more of those classrooms in terms of being funded through that MOQPK grant, using more Title I preschool funds. So there are lots of funding sources that we can tap into, but it's not just about the money. So the Head Start really does provide a program for you have to qualify with an income, a maximum income, and so for some of our families who couldn't afford to send their children to a preschool because they don't have they don't have the means to do daycare for the other half a day. So that full day Head Start program is really, really beneficial for our community. So we're going to do everything that we can to continue to partner with them. But we just are now in a waiting game. So Dr. Katie met with our MARC ed coach today just to see if there's any, because there's talk of the government reopening soon. So we're hoping, knock on wood, that happens. But we will let you know as soon as we know anything, but for our families and for our staff, it's business as normal for the rest of the school year, and then we'll just continue to pursue other funding options if we have to do that. So, do you have any questions that I can answer for you at this time?
I think this was the right thing to do, and I think, not to speak for anyone else on the board, but I think that we're pretty good agreement on that. And I appreciate the way that we communicated about this, first to the board, and then I know you also met with the teachers and the parents and the other people that were affected. To me, just a quick comment. This shows the importance of the better fiscal control we saw with the budget revision. I think the decision would have been the same, but it was much easier to be supportive of this when we have a much smaller deficit.
Right.
It would have been a harder decision, where things were looking in the past. I did just, out of curiosity, what are other districts doing? Are there other districts that maybe are unfortunately closing these classrooms?
So in our area, as of right now, most places are staying open, but I know that Dr. Katie has worked with other regional centers where some of them are looking at, if this funding doesn't come in, that they know that they can stay open through the end of the semester. So it's like, what do you do when January comes along? There are some places that are looking at, maybe needing to reduce classrooms or to even close. Head Start is not just in our schools, like there are, Head Start, all through the city. So like Kansas City Public has a huge impact with this, so.
I just, I think it's important that we communicate, which we're doing now, to the public, that what we did here, what we did was what's right for students, what's right for our staff, what's for the best, outcome for these, young kids.
Well, and I think, we all feel in the cabinet and that early education is crucial. And so we know that we want to do everything we can to support as many students at that, those 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and even, our parents as teachers group, and we have so many referrals coming in through First Steps of students who at 3 years old already are showing significant needs for additional services, whether it's related services or just in extra education pieces, and so that's not going to get any less. Right, so it's going to continue to be really important for us to find ways to support our early learners. So,
if you have to look at other funding, like through the Missouri
MOQPK,
is there a deadline for that?
Yeah, but it's late. It's like I always do the application for MOQPK. It's like in May, and so even this year. Last year was the first year that we as a district used the MOQPK stream because I just don't think we really knew about it. And so last year we applied, but I didn't really know what it entailed. And so the cool thing about that stream too is it also comes with coaching. But they can coach our teachers, but they can coach all of the teachers. So with these different funding sources, we're getting all of this additional support in terms of coaching and training for our staff. And so that's why I say the funding sources are important, but it's also it's more than just the money. It's the support that our whole staff is benefiting from. And so, and those are based upon numbers of students. So you get a flat amount of money for the MOQPK per student in your classroom. So we do a grant application, we're awarded funds, and then we get paid that money in December and in June based upon our enrollment.
Go ahead.
Sorry, if we, came into a situation where funding was challenging and then the district made a decision to continue to move forward, do you think that those services would also still be available, or are they also at risk?
No, these are state funded, so the MOQPK is state funded. So I don't feel that there's any risk in that going away. Now the Title I preschool fund, that's federal. Those are federal dollars. So, I don't know if you remember in August, we didn't think we were going to get any of our Title II or Title IV funds for a while. So we never know with those federal funds. Most of the people that I work with DESE don't seem to feel like we need to be stressed about those dollars. So I feel confident that I mean, we can also even take our early childhood center on the formula. So there's all kinds of ways that we can fund this to support it. It's just, I really like the added benefits that we get with some of these other funding sources that come with those mental health supports, the nutritional supports. Like, all of those things are so great for our community.
Yeah, that was what I was referencing. Are those extra components, or is it all tied up in
It's
one?
all tied up. So like all these components with Mark Head Start are all tied up together. But like right now, because Mark is operating on their reserve fund, so they made a decision to go ahead and continue to operate, even though their funding hasn't come through yet. But because of that, they're operating at a reduced capacity. So if it were continue to be shut down and the funding not come through, I would assume that it will continue to be reduced. They'll still support, but not in the same capacities that they have been able to.
Do you know how many, and you may not know this off the top of your head, so not all Head Start programs are through school districts?
Do you know, Katie? Do you know?
Do you know how many are?
I think there's 7 school districts and 8 non-school districts.
Yeah.
So like our Head Start program for years was independent. It was ran in the little building behind the old, I'm going to date myself, but the old 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
Daylight Donuts building. There was that little building there was the Head Starts for years and years and years. And I would say Dr. Hain was here, and I don't remember if that was his 2nd or 3rd year. They discontinued that program, and Mark came to us and said, "Would you like to bring it in-house?" And so we did. That was when Dr. Katie came down, and that's when it grew down here from 2 or 3 classes of ECC to what it is now. So it hasn't always been under our umbrella. Is kind of what I'm saying. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Katie. Anybody else have any questions for Dr. Everett? Good. All right. Moving on to the academic update. Dr. Miller.
Thank you. So I was just here last month and gave you some updates about our academic goals, which was challenging because I gave you like our goals for data that I can't present to you until now. So this is our 2025 MAP, EOC, APR data. It's great to have it available for you in November, so the state's getting a little bit better. I think I shared it with you in January of last year, so excited to share this with you now. So I tried to break this down in the most simplified way I possibly can, so I'll walk you through this data. So I try to create the most simplified graphs because you can really get carried away and kind of lost in the numbers with all of this. So this is just simply the last 4 years, and then overall all buildings combined for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So one thing that I will point out is that 3rd grade, when I first got here, was the strongest performing grade, and it always went 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and as you can see this year the opposite has happened. So that can be due to a lot of different things. It can be the level of the test. This was 2nd year of Wit and Wisdom, and so they should be coming out of that bubble a little bit by this year moving forward, but just wanted to share this with you. This is breakdown by building. So again, this is ELA for our elementary buildings. The black line there is state. So if you look at 3rd grade, if you look at all of the grades, Lewis moved in the middle of the year, and so that makes a pretty big impact. Whether it makes an impact or not, we'll never know because we're never going to move buildings in the middle of the year again. So I promise, Jill. So it's hard to really look at Lewis data and make some changes because I believe that taking 3 weeks and moving in the middle of the year probably has a significant impact on those scores. Huge celebrations. If you look at Elkhorn, 4th grade did an outstanding job, 5th grade did an outstanding job. Some concerns at Cornerstone, and again, when you look at 5th grade, one of the reasons that 5th grade advanced so much is because Elkhorn brought the averages up so much. The 5th grade team at Cornerstone continues to be a new team for what feels like the 3rd year now. That again has a significant impact. This is our secondary ELA. That includes 6th, 7th, 8th grade, English 1, and English 2. One thing that I want to point out, we are not obligated to assess in English 1. It doesn't count towards our APR. We just do it for information. We typically have, we score very well in English. You can tell when looking at the high school in that English 2 category. We continue to go down a little bit each year in English 2. 6th grade went down. There are, we've got a new teacher this year in 6th grade, so some turnover there. 7th grade, there was some turnover there as well. 8th grade is inching up. We've got 2 returning 8th grade teachers, so I look for that to continue to go up. Also, the 8th grade ELA teachers are absolutely in love with the new reading program, and it's just been a lot of fun to watch them embrace it. English 2 is a concern. We've done some shuffling of some teachers a little bit at the high school, so on my radar there. If you look at this, it shows across the board in every area that we test in ELA compared to state. As you can tell, it's not uncommon for middle school to drop at the state level. We are just that much further below state average until we make it back up to English 2. Historically, we have always surpassed state average at the English 2, and the lines have always been much, much closer. So that again is also a concern for me. 5th grade, again, I think the reason that you're seeing that come together is thanks to Elkhorn for bringing those averages up in 5th grade. Math tells a little bit of a different story. 3rd grade, math went up. 4th grade, math went down a little bit, and 5th grade also went down. So to break that down even more for you, this is what it looks like by building. 3rd grade at Elkhorn did incredible. They did some interesting flexing. I would say that probably some of our 2 strongest teachers in the district are teachers at 3rd grade in Elkhorn, and it truly shows. 4th grade took a little bit of a hit, but then Lewis 4th grade jumped far ahead of everyone. So looking at 5th grade, I think that was maybe the biggest surprise to me is Lewis 5th grade teachers, with all the focus that they had on math, I really expected that to be higher, and I think that I can say the same thing about science when I show you that. So this again is math secondary. I will tell you that 6th grade went up a little bit, 7th grade went down substantially. 8th grade went up because it was abysmal the year before. The high school Algebra 1, we just took a giant hit. Took a giant hit in Algebra 1. So that I can show you when we get to APR is really a drastic hit to our APR percentage points. So here's where we are state average wise. Again, Algebra 1 last year, I think that I had the principal come to me at the end of November and said that around 60 to 70% of our kids were failing Algebra 1. So at the end of November, that's a lot of school before I realized that it was time to really make an impact. As you can see, we need earlier interventions in place. So in working with Dr. Hartman for trying to get algebra under wraps this year, she kind of saw the same decline in our algebra scores, immediately met with teachers, set up some fail-safes, if you will, to try to get kids what they're needing so that we don't have a repeat of this year. We've got a STAR assessment in place that is specific to algebra, so we're tracking that. That's normed nationally, and it's super comparative to state standards and really identifies which kids, not based on a grade, because those can be pretty subjective, but really need specific help in. So I would say that there were a couple of really big hits, I would say, that really happened, I think, at the high school level. Algebra, it is just, math is going to be taking a lot of my priority moving forward. So if you look at science scores here, We had a new science program that we had to shift. Cornerstone went down, Lewis went down, Elkhorn went down, which you can expect a bubble. I never am expecting that much of a bubble. So when they wrote curriculum the year before, which in 2024, I think the standards were the focus when they wrote the curriculum. And then when you added the new resource, I think the priority was trying to figure out the resource. So I look for those two to come together and move back up next year. 8th grade saw a big increase. I also want to say that in 8th grade, I had a teacher leave early in the semester, and she was replaced by an instructional coach at the 8th grade level, a highly qualified instructional coach. So she had really, really good scores in her science class. Biology continues to be a concern. I know when Dr. Hartman got here, these were all things that I sat down with her and said these are top priorities. She's done a wonderful job of being open to new ideas and coaching and trying to get to the bottom of everything. Science comparison, again, at science, not every grade is tested. We are tested in 5th grade, 8th grade, and in biology. This is the difference in 5th grade, 8th grade, and biology where we're at for this year. High school proficient and advanced, this is the second hit I think that really made the biggest difference in our APR. If you look at the high school overall, you can see that they consistently went down. Biology went up by like 2 points, which is still a celebration. But if you look over at government, we have always tested above state average at government. There were some staffing changes that happened at the high school level that I wasn't necessarily a part of, or I maybe would have had some different ideas maybe on who was teaching what, but that, I think, that's not representative of who we are as a district and what we typically can do for government. Again, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I get our APR and map results and I think it's a typo, and I call DESE, and the government one, literally that's how consistently above state average we are. And that is, we had a first-year teacher teaching government, and just all of the changes at the high school, and they all did a wonderful job. The students just didn't perform as well as they typically do. So now I want to talk a little bit about APR. It can be confusing, and this is just the most simplified version of how they calculate our APR. So what makes up an APR score are basically these 5 things. So you get 2, when your kids take the test, MAP or EOC, you get 2 scores. You get a score for your regular ed students, and then you get a score for your subgroup performance. So think of those as subgroup, and then the regular group is over here. So you get 2 separate scores for those that can either go up and down based on the percentage points that you're awarded. You also have a growth score that again is separated by subgroup and then by reg ed students. Your attendance counts into that. I can tell you that we get 50% of the attendance points available to us, so that continues to be a concern. We get 100% of the graduation and post-secondary readiness. If there is a point available to us that doesn't have anything to do, I don't want to say doesn't have anything to do because it all has to do with performance, but outside of performance, any point that is available to us, we are getting all of the points. So this literally is our APR concerns, MAP and EOC issues are all teaching, learning, student performance based. So how the points are calculated, you can read through this, but literally there are a certain amount of points possible. You earn a certain amount of points based on if a kid is proficient, advanced, all of the things that you hear me talk about with MAP and EOC. They give you a calculation of the percentage of points earned. They award you those points and then they add them up at the end. It's as simple as that in the way that they do that. So here's how we broke down with APR. So I wanted to give you a yearly comparison of the year before, just to give you an idea of like where we're moving. So ELA performance, again, I showed you like we had some issues with ELA. I don't want to call them issues because they could be any, I mean, in some cases it could be 8 kids that didn't test well. So they could be right on the cutoff. But for that reason, we went from 75% of the points to 50% of the points. So that went down. Everything else remained the same other than subgroup achievement in science went from 75% to 50%. Overall, I can tell you that when we look at our student performance, it doesn't change that much, which is a concern for me. So our students typically perform in this area for the most part. So this is the performance-based points that I told you about. This is the growth, and this is the challenge with the current APR when you calculate growth. In 2024, we had a lot of growth points. So it's not uncommon that when you receive a lot of growth points one year, it's hard to get that many growth points the next year, and so a lot of districts are seeing kind of a teeter-tottering of you grow 1 year, you go down 1 year, then you can grow 1 year, then you can go down. When you have your students that are, if your performance levels aren't changing, you run that risk of kind of riding that line on moving just up or just down from 1 year to the next. So if you look at ELA growth for all students, it went from 50 to 25%. Subgroup achievement went up a little bit, or went up from 25% to 50%. Math remained the same, which should be going up, and it's not. Like, that's a huge concern that we have consistently gotten 25% of the points. Science went from 50% to 25%. Subgroup achievement in science went from 75, we got 25% of the growth points there. Social studies, again, we've always had 100% of our points in social studies. All students went to 50%, and subgroup achievement took one of the biggest hits from 100% to 25% of the growth points available. These are additional points that we can earn. CCR assessments are things like ACT, work keys, ASVAB testing. So again, this is a performance score. We earned 50% of those points last year, and we earned 50% of those points this year. Advanced credit options that we have for our students, we get 100% pretty consistently. Those are things like college credit, APR. Graduation rate, we always earn 100% of our graduation points. And graduate follow-up, we get 100% of those points. Those are what are kids doing after they have graduated. So they really track career placement and things like that. So we earned 100% of the points on that as well. So interpreting the results, a score of 70% is the state's cutoff for full accreditation. We earned a score of 69.5. However, they take 3 years. So if you look at the bottom here, 2026 APR is based on an average of these 3 years. Okay, so based on the 3 years of average, last year was 74. I didn't write down 2024, but I think it was 76 or 75. So we're still above average when you factor those two in. This is sort of a, honestly, it's a wake-up call that you're going to have to start really focusing on academics and putting the priority there so that you can make some decisions that turn this around. Because of that, we are entering a monitoring phase, which again prioritizes a heavy focus on our data interpretation, creation of targeted plans based on data, which I've always had a targeted plan based on our data. That's how I decide what programs to choose, what is implemented, priorities to put on teacher professional development, all of those things that I tell you about. Monitoring growth and goal completion. So one of the ways that we are addressing that is creating an academic task force. This is made up of principals and myself. I think the principals and we meet regularly, twice a month, just to meet and discuss professional developments and all things necessary for educational leadership, instructional leadership. We typically I don't want to say we don't, we do a couple times a year where we are filtering through data based on the data that I showed you, making decisions and then moving forward with a plan. So I think the academic task force is going to meet an additional time and really focus on this is what this actually means, and these things have to be in place in order to get better. I will also tell you that I think in my years of doing this, I can come up with some pretty good ideas as to why these things are happening. But what I also will tell you is that that is the job of the task force, and I'm going to specifically look at data. One thing that I will tell you, if you look at this chart, everyone thinks curriculum is what you guys approve as board members, the written stuff that goes through here and you guys read it and you go, looks good to me, and you put your stamp on it. Curriculum has 3 parts actually in order to be full curriculum. You've got the written curriculum that you guys approve. You've got what is taught in a classroom. So what a teacher is actually teaching is also part of curriculum. And what you assess and how you assess it is also part of the curriculum. If I had to make my best guess, I would tell you that I believe that our written curriculum it's gone through, with the exception of math. I inherited math and that's on cycle next year. So it's a perfect time to evaluate math based on our scores and based on what I'm seeing. Other than math, our written curriculum has gone through full cycle. It's been written by our teachers with assistance from our instructional coaches. I have reviewed it. I have a curriculum handbook based on, it outlines every single process that needs to be taken in order to have a highly vetted curriculum. I believe that our written curriculum, because of those things, is rigorous and standards aligned. What I cannot tell you for sure, and what warrants further investigation on my part, is what is being taught in the classroom truly what was written? So at that rigorous level, is that making its way into the classroom? Are we assessing that written curriculum in a way or at the level that the standards and the state is asking you? So that when they get to a state assessment, like the MAP or EOC, are the questions too difficult for them because they never really got that deep into it? I can't say as if that is what it is. That is probably my best guess and certainly something that I'm going to be investigating. I can also tell you that a written curriculum is only as good as its ability to make its way to students. You can have the best curriculum, and if it never fully gets its way to a student, it doesn't matter. If how you are assessing students on if that was truly taught, if the assessment isn't aligned, you have no information for if it was taught or not. The only way to make sure that this wheel spins accordingly is that principals need to be in classrooms, making sure that the written curriculum is being taught, offering teachers that support. We have a lot of new teachers, and it's difficult. It's very difficult to learn new curriculum and really see that fully implemented. So always giving that support to all of our teachers, not just the new ones, is a huge priority. And I think warrants more of my time and the administrator's time than maybe had in the past based on the new hires that we have. So that needs to be a priority. This was pulled from STAR assessments, and what this is cohort data, which means these are the same kids over 3 years. So if you look at 3rd grade, that's current 3rd grade this year, and that includes when they were 2nd graders and when they were 1st graders. So and this is ELA. So if you look at the red, think of those as your kids that are at risk. And then think of it as low basic, basic, proficient, and advanced for easy calculation in your head. When I look at these graphs through cohorts, what I can see immediately is that our kids aren't growing. They're really not moving from one band to another. It's a minimum expectation for all of our teachers, no matter where a kid starts, we have to get a year's worth of growth for that kid, or they move backwards. Does that make sense? So if you come into 4th grade reading at a 2nd grade level and you don't get a full year, you may enter 5th grade at, maybe you grew, but you're still at a 2nd grade level. So the goal always through interventions is to increase that and speed that up and get a kid caught up as soon as you can. The gap continues to widen after 3rd grade. So that by the time a kid gets to 7th and 8th grade, it's so much harder to close that gap and get them caught up on reading level. So again, because of data like this, I just wanted to share this with you. That makes me wonder and question why perhaps we're not getting a year's worth of growth, and so I need to investigate why that is. Here are some things that also I'm interested in finding out and discussing with the task force that I spoke about. Teacher retention, I want to see really what does the impact look like on our assessments. Typically, if a teacher knows that they are not going to be with the district, they know about this in March. Is that affecting the last quarter of a student's education? So really looking at data and trying to give further support to teachers, further support to students based on that. I believe that if we are getting less than 1 year's growth, I think that warrants some investigation to try to figure out why. I think that's important. Attendance. I think Dr. Bullmore has said this multiple times, but it's really hard to learn when you're not at school. Attendance is a huge issue, but really I think that it's not just so we can get money. I think to get 90-90, I wanted to say it used to be 14 days you could miss. 13? Is it 16?
Almost 17.
So 16 days you can miss and still be here 90% of the time. But imagine for a kid who is here 70% of the time, imagine if you missed 16 days. That's a huge impact on your ability to learn. So attendance is a giant issue. But I don't know that we've specifically taken a detailed look at exactly what that costs when a kid misses a day of learning. That's one of the reasons why I hold learning in classrooms and keeping a teacher in the classroom so sacred, is we only have so many days, and it's a big deal when you miss one. That is, in summary, where we're at, and I'm happy to take your questions at this time.
I just had a few quick questions.
Yeah.
And these are just thoughts as I look at the data. Elkhorn 5th grade ELA, Elkhorn 3rd grade math, and 4th grade math at Lewis. I know when I read the board reports from the buildings that they do tiger walks.
We do that district-wide, yeah.
District-wide.
Mm-hmm.
Are we encouraging other teachers to go into these classrooms to see what these teachers are doing?
That's the definition of a tiger walk, and why we do them, is that the instructional coaches actually handpick classrooms. They'll have look-fors, a lot of times based on the goals that we have. Like right now, we have a huge vocabulary push, along with like great math lessons that they will intentionally say, we're going to do a tiger walk, open up this classroom, go in and look for these things to celebrate and learn. I know you've heard me say this before, but the best professional development that you can give to a teacher is by seeing another teacher do it. And our teachers are doing this. So I think that's one of the most frustrating things for the administrators and for myself and for certainly the teachers, is that this just isn't a reflection of how hard we are working and the things that we are doing on behalf of our students. So I think that's really the frustrating part. But yeah, Tiger Walks are a K-12 thing that have been in place for, I think, 4 years.
And I did want to commend teachers and admin, because I do work in schools and it is a hard job, and I know how hard they're working. And students are too. Mm-hmm. You know, they come to school with what they have, and they, for the most part, they want to be there and they want to do their best.
Yes.
So I commend everyone. The other piece that I wondered too is like demonstration classrooms. If we have those classrooms, I feel like the map in the EOC, it's like an autopsy. It's a snapshot of how a student did on an assessment at one point. Mm-hmm. During the school year, we're giving those STAR assessments. I'm more familiar with iReady than STAR, but I wondered if there was a way we could have demonstration classrooms, like for ELA and like for math at each grade level, at least at the elementary and possibly middle school. I don't want to create more work, but you are right. Teachers learn best from other teachers.
So the Tiger Walks were in a response to, I think, demonstration classrooms. When we first started doing Tiger Walks, the thing about being an amazing teacher is that amazing teachers are the first ones to go, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong, I can't. Like, they're the ones that are like, please don't come and judge me. It is really difficult. There have been plenty of teachers where I'm like, can I just put a glass wall in here and have somebody come and watch you? They are the first. I can think of one at Elkhorn right now that I wish I could just knock a wall out and she would probably quit before she would allow anyone in her classroom to look at her. When we first started doing Tiger Walks, that was very much part of the culture that I wanted to break down. 4 years into it, everyone is doing them. We also encourage instructional coaches to find coverage. For the first time, we're having 5th grade classrooms go see what a 6th grade classroom looks like and vice versa. I encourage 8th grade to go see what an ELA classroom at the high school looks like. So although I would love that, I've tried to talk teachers into it and it's really difficult.
Okay, another question,
Yeah.
because I've seen this happen and it makes a huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of new teachers, but going with some sort of co-teacher model where you have a veteran teacher with a new teacher. I've been in some classrooms in other places, you cannot tell the difference between the veteran teacher and that first year teacher because that veteran teacher has modeled and that new teacher has picked up on that. Plus you can reach more students that way. But that's just a thought, just a question.
So one of the things, like I don't want to name names, but I meet with a group of teachers who used to be my teachers. And so I had mentioned to them, would you guys want to sort of adopt a new teacher and volunteer and kind of show them the ropes? And they were all thrilled with it. Co-teacher modeling in its purest form with, you know, an existing teacher, mentor teacher, and a new teacher, the staffing issues in the classroom sizes tend to shy them away from that. But thinking outside of the box with some of our local teachers, I think they would be thrilled to go in and model some of that stuff and at least be a helping hand in that. So nothing's off the plate.
Okay. One more question and then I'll be done.
I'm happy.
At the high school level with algebra, and I'll be honest, gosh, I'm glad I had a boyfriend that was really smart in algebra when I was in high school. He helped me a lot. But do we have intervention, like RTI time in place for algebra?
So Dr. Hartman inherited an intervention program, and I think one of the first things I said when she got here, I was like, maybe we should take a look at this intervention program. Right now, I would say that because credits are assigned to high school, I think that a lot of times we focus on, we need this kid to pass this class, without truly looking at a standard and making sure the kid understands the content. A kid who struggles in Algebra 1 is not going to be very successful at Algebra 2. So I think it's more about just passing Algebra 1 and really do they understand the content. So that's something that we have talked about. I think that we have some interesting, or I want to say creative ideas on working some interventions and maybe utilizing some resources that we have creatively. And again, I can't stress this enough. This is not a teacher issue. Every teacher there wants a kid to be successful and is trying and pulling out all of the stops. And I mean, I always am cautious when I give these reports. It is not a teacher issue. We have amazing teachers. Oftentimes, and in my opinion, when you look at that wheel, it's a breakdown in that wheel somewhere. So that's part of my priority, and my job is to figure out where that breakdown is and make sure we can get teachers the resources that they need.
And just one last thing.
Yeah.
I would encourage everyone to celebrate the growth.
Yes.
Even the small growth from day to day with our students.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Could you just, while we're on the screen, could you explain the outlier, I guess, the math, the very short
The 8th grade one? What that means is that that's how few proficient and advanced kids we had that year in 8th grade.
Like 1%, like one kid maybe.
It wasn't one kid,
I mean,
but it was close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
out of a class of,
What happened that year?
We opened up algebra.
I'm getting to that. So I would say the principal at the time really was interested in taking a risk, and any student that wanted to take algebra could opt into it, which is wonderful. You have more kids taking algebra than ever before. But because you opened it up and have more kids that, let's say you have 50% of your kids taking algebra, when maybe you only had 25% of your kids taking algebra, it just makes the other 50% of the kids, it's just, that's the reason that you saw that trend at the time.
Okay, so a student could have elected to take algebra and then they would have
And not
taken-
been ready for algebra,
Right.
perhaps.
But they have then tested the Algebra 1, the graph on the right in that case.
So, or I think that they got to first semester and realized maybe Algebra 1 was not for them. And so they got Algebra 1 and took a semester of 8th grade and took that 8th grade EOC. What we saw for those kids who had a semester of Algebra 1 that really pushed their thinking, and maybe the math teacher said, I'm not sure that you're ready for Algebra 1, those kids that took that attempt and went back to 8th grade had a higher than average 8th grade score on the math. So pushing them actually made an impact for the positive. So that's something that we're always looking for too. Yeah.
That makes more sense, just understanding why that's such an outlier.
Again, remember how I told you there's usually one that I say, that is a typo. That was last year's. Yeah.
How often do you anticipate the academic task force meeting?
Currently, we're going to be, so just to give you an idea of when I'm meeting with principals, I have an academic meeting that I meet with them. Then I have an optional professional development meeting that I offer that is just straight instructional professional development that I give to them. I am proud to say, even though it's optional, they all show up for it. I also include assistant principals and instructional coaches. I believe that administrators, once you become an administrator, you just don't get a lot of professional development anymore. So I kind of see myself as their instructional coach. So we have those two meetings, and I asked them, I said, do you want to get rid of the professional development one and just meet as a task force? And they were all like, no, we don't want to lose that professional development. So we're extending the first one, the academic meeting. We'll just have an extension of 30 to 45 minutes or whenever we finish that will be dedicated really to just going through data, pulling STAR data, pulling growth data to make sure we're on track to get a kid a year's worth of growth. You have to have a year's worth of growth out of a kid or you will continually move backwards every year. Thank you. Good question. Yeah, which one do you want?
I think it is
This one?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask about the drop in state also. Whatever year this was.
So that
So I know
is
we were downtrending, but there's a huge dip and then a huge dip.
in the state.
I was just curious.
So that is the first year that they decided that if you took Algebra 1 at the 8th grade level, that your Algebra 1 score kept at 8th grade. All of the schools said, how are we supposed to ever track data when you keep changing the rules every year? So they changed it back and it went back up.
It was significant, obviously.
Yep. Yeah, because, again, when I talked about same reason, when you, yeah.
So the Algebra 1 score is freshman Algebra 1, not 8th grade Algebra 1.
Correct. In this year's Algebra 1 score, if you look at it, they opt in, they tend to, it's the first opportunity within math that a kid has to take an alternative path, an advanced path is that 8th grade year. You could pull individual algebra scores from 8th grade. They are not scoring as high as I would like to see them score either. So what Annalise and I have talked about is keeping that Algebra 1, maybe one of those semesters in place because we did see such good results, or pre-algebra in its place.
So did the 8th grade algebra scores that finished the whole year, did they count into the Algebra 1 map, or is that strictly freshman?
Currently, they are supposed to be counted with 8th grade.
To the 8th grade map?
To the 8th grade.
Gotcha. Okay.
When I see the data and the results, I question whether that is actually happening this year. Yes.
Can you go up?
Yep.
To the one prior.
This one?
Yeah. At least 8th grade was up. I mean, I had nowhere to go but up from 24. I mean, let's be honest.
That's why you're seeing that dramatic that dip. That's why you're seeing that. I would like to say, like, I hear all the time, like, well, you have your 8th grade. It's like that across the state. So it's an apples to apples number, and I would like to be able to tell you it's because we offer algebra in 8th grade. But so do most schools in the state, and we are that far below state average. So I don't buy that excuse. We just have to do a better job. And I also want to say that the teachers in Algebra 1 teaching freshmen, they don't hold this score entirely on our back. There's a breakdown in our math program when you look at kindergarten through 8th grade. We really need to focus more on critical thinking, problem solving that's associated with things like algebra. Again, I can't say without going through a curriculum cycle, which we will do in full next year. I'm guessing that that's an area of breakdown.
So did you set the curriculum of which is in play? Like, is that, was that something that when you came into your role,
When I came into my role, the implementation of math started my first year and was on a 6-year cycle. So I inherited that one. And by inherited, like, I made sure it was implemented correctly, but I didn't have anything to do, I don't want to say I didn't have anything to do with it, but I wasn't in this position when they wrote curriculum for it or they looked at the resources. That was something that was in place literally right before I got here. So another thing to think about why I put things on cycle intentionally so that you can look at that handbook and determine like what is coming up around the corner. One of the reasons is because these are expensive programs. Like at the time, they had math and science in the same year. Those are the 2 most expensive programs, and it's really hard to ask Dr. Bullimore for money for one program, let alone 2 shoved together. So that's one of the reasons that I broke those apart. Math is on cycle this year. Again, that's when the 6th year comes up.
So it was tough report, right?
It was tough. Trust me, it was tougher for me than it was for you, but yes.
That's what I was actually hoping that you would say. And like, one of my questions is a more personal question, but knowing that it kind of falls under your purview, like, what's that self-reflection look like for you when you see that? Like, how does that, like...
Are you asking me if I feel good about these scores as the director of academics in this district? No.
I would hope not. Okay. If you had 10% of your, like, educators standing in front of you today, like your teachers, your classroom teachers standing in front of you.
If I had a percentage, sorry.
10% of them would come in here. What would 3 things, like, give me just a handful, just a couple things that you think that they would say is a part of our why for this, for our scores?
The reasons that it happened?
Yeah, like, or, I don't...
What would their reasoning for why the scores are low be?
How could it be different? Yes, like, what do you think they would say is a product of where we're at?
Are you asking what would a teacher say the reason that our scores are low would be?
Yeah, sure.
I think that teacher turnover is a huge concern.
Yeah.
I think that the amount of time that I personally spend on new teacher training has probably doubled in the 5 years, and I'm happy to do that if that's where the need arises.
Oh, sorry, it was what do you think they would say?
I think they would say teacher turnover. I think that they would say collaborating with a brand new team every year is exhausting, and it's hard to build that team momentum, and it's hard to grow each other. New teachers need a lot of support, and I think that when we are turning over teachers constantly, I think I gave you in the report last month, that at the middle school, 50% of the teachers are either first, second year, or they're new to their content, or they're teaching a new content. Managing classroom management and all of the things that are associated with teaching middle school is difficult ordinarily, but then when you have a team, I would say 5th grade at Cornerstone, there's a team of brand new teachers. So who do you lean on whenever you need support? So I would say that every teacher in the district would certainly say that. I would say that teachers, it didn't feel good when it went to a vote, and that teachers in our community got to feel that maybe the community didn't feel like they needed or were worthy of a pay increase. I think that as a teacher, last year before MAP testing, I think that that made a difference. I really do. I think that every teacher here, and I believe this as well, would tell you that they are doing everything they can to increase the success of their students. I think they take the time to build relationships. I think they're doing everything right. They're asked to do a lot of things, and we're always trying to make sure that we are taking care of them from a cultural standpoint. But I also can tell you that no teacher feels good about this. Like, I don't feel good about this, and the reason, again, I don't is because this is not a reflection of the effort and everything that goes into making this the best educational experience we can for our community members.
Yes, and I know that you don't feel good about it, we don't feel good about it, and I know most importantly the classroom teachers don't feel good about it, and they are giving so much of themselves, and so they want what they give of themselves to reflect in their scores. Naturally, we all do, right?
I made a personal phone call to Jill and said, I didn't even want her to find out about it, and I said, I have to talk to you about science. I made a personal phone call to her because I knew it would break her heart, because her teachers worked so hard in science specifically and didn't see the results. So that's not the fault of the teachers, that's not the fault of the building, that's not the fault of the move. That's why we're going to get together and determine, are we spending, every time that you have an issue like this, you are exhausting all of your resources on the wrong thing. And by resources, I mean our time. So we only have so much time in the year, and we only have so many things we can do with a kid to advance them forward. So it's not that teachers aren't doing the things and that they're not teaching. We really need to look and prioritize the things that are going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah, I think that teachers have a lot on their plate just by what is being told to us as the
Without question, hardest job
they
ever.
have a lot on their plate to carry, and then there's this like really big expectations of this grade card for them, which is like unfortunate that this has to be a scoring that doesn't reflect their whole year and all the great things that they have done. But it's part of our funding, so we have to lean in on it and we have to care about it. I just worry that there's so much on them, and that, like, is it possible to take some of the are there ancillary things that don't need to be there that we can just look at to take off their plate so they can focus on some of these other things? The turnover's huge.
The turnover is huge, but this doesn't feel good to anyone, and I think that what this data is showing is that, right or wrong, we're doing the wrong things. So we have to do different things. I will tell you that
we don't just go in and start pulling all these other levers, that all this work that's put into the last 3 years like gets undone, because that's hard on an infrastructure too. Like, they've done so good.
I will tell you, there is a push and a pull on everything that I do. There's a flip side of a coin. So there's nothing that I wouldn't do to take more off the plate of a teacher. I will also tell you that one of the struggles that I have that I never thought would be a struggle is that when we get MASA updates on policy from state legislation, I used to have none of them because I was the academic person, and they were usually SPED and HR. I will say that recently, about half of them are mine. So, for example, a bunch of senators got together and decided we would have a week of Holocaust education. I don't know why that's a senator's business in any way, but we got together and we will have a Holocaust education. Reading success plans take a huge chunk out of a teacher's day. I'm not saying it's not a wonderful thing to a kid, because what we're seeing is that they're working. But that's an ask that I have to ask teachers that was never my idea. So a lot of those things are in place. More and more, I would say that education is driven by policy out of Jefferson City, I think, more than it ever has been, which is a challenge.
It was mentioned to me that we have more minutes per day in our curriculum of what has to be accomplished than we have minutes in the classroom, our teachers have in the classroom. So if that's true, that also feels like it's a structure that's built on failure.
So I will respond to that and say that we get a group of teachers, a group of administrators together, and every year, especially at the elementary level, which I assume is where you're hearing that from, you are absolutely correct. We are asked to teach a lot of things. When you look at literacy, there are 3 programs that go into literacy or more. It's not open a book and let's teach reading. There's phonics, phonemic awareness. The science behind teaching a kid how to read takes a lot of time. A math block is 90 minutes. When you look at our math scores, I'm not taking any minutes away from math or reading. Those are 2 foundational things. We get together once a year. I invite teachers and administrators. We call it Battle of the Minutes. And I let them hash it out. What do you want it to be? You guys get to decide how many minutes we put on one thing. And at the end of them, the teachers always look at us and they're like, there's really nothing you can do with this. They may move 5 minutes from one thing to another, but for the most part, it is what it is. The only requirement that I have for minutes is to make sure a kid gets 30 minutes of science every day. That's the only state requirement, and then we determine what's best for kids based on that. You have to add in intervention time, which again is something on the teacher's plate, but something I can't take away when we look at test scores. I will do anything for a teacher, but never at the expense of a student. And I think the teachers in this district wouldn't want me to do that anyway.
I don't think that was where I was going with that we would want to take away from a student. You'd mentioned, you said and you looked at the board, like you are going to have to focus on academics. Do you feel like we haven't?
No, I was speaking as the district as a whole. I think that academics has always been a part, but when you enter in, when I showed you those APR scores, I think that's a wake-up call for you need to take some fine-tuned looks at it, like things through the academic task force. So no, I think that I've never had an issue with the board approving curriculum or not giving me what I need. That's not what I was referring to. I think a lot of things, every change that is happening, regardless of where it's at in a school, ultimately affects a kid. The lack of funding that we have ultimately affects a kid. The amount of new teachers that we have, the cost of what we pay teachers, ultimately it ends up in the lap of a student. So we have to do whatever we can to make sure that it's not a negative impact moving forward. So that's what I mean by focusing on academics. For example, secondary schedules, I've never been a part of. And so teachers are teaching things that they shouldn't be teaching. And that can be a challenge. And I know Dr. Hartman and Mrs. Tadlock and I are really excited to work together on a schedule to make sure that students are at the center of it so that you don't see some of those abrupt things. I am all for a teacher wanting to teach a different subject level, but you also have to give them support in the form of professional development. You just can't drop them in there and wish them luck. So,
yeah. There were a lot of moments that you said, it's going to take some investigation. I need to look into that. A lot more investigation. Is there going to be an opportunity for a post-review on this that's not going to be a year later? Like,
so my plan, just so you guys know, is I plan on presenting to the board quarterly on where we're doing moving forward. That's something through the CSIP that we have moving forward is just something that I want to work in and quarterly present. So I'm excited to do that, and I'm going to data you guys to death with where we're going. And the reason that I say it warrants investigation is that I think it would be really arrogant of me to say I know exactly what the issue is and here's what we're going to do. That's why we need a team behind it. I would say that I am in classrooms more than anyone in my position probably has ever been, and that's really where the rubber meets the road and you see what is being implemented in classrooms and really what you need to do. I have teachers give me the best pieces of advice on what needs to happen when I'm sitting at a table with them at a grade level collaboration. Principals have great relationships with our teachers, and so bringing them as a part of that task force But I plan on keeping you guys involved every step of the way, communication-wise.
And then my last one, sorry, and thanks for hanging with me. Aside from teacher retention based on salary, aside from that, as a board member, what do you think our talking points should be to our community as they ask us about our APR, they talk about our scores?
Sure.
What, short of just saying the right, the facts are the facts on the numbers, right? How do we respond?
I would say that Jill pointed out that, number one, there are pockets of excellence and celebration. Elkhorn made huge gains. Dr. Harris creatively rearranged some things and tried some new things and saw huge success. I think, like I said, biology incrementally went up from where it needed to go. There's pockets of celebrations to be had here. The APR game, like I said, I can show you that graph. You either get more or you get less, and if you get less, it dings your APR.
I can lean in on that if we were getting the up and the down, but I didn't feel like we were getting the up and the down. Did you?
Growth from one year to the next, very much so. Yeah, very much so. I feel like last year we got a lot of growth points. I can tell you that based on the things that we have in place now, we have a solid curriculum. When I got here 5 years ago, we didn't have a written curriculum. Teachers showed up and went to Teachers Pay Teachers and tried to find things. There's a learning curve with learning new curriculum and being held accountable for that curriculum, but we have all of the things in place to where when you look at these scores, we should be seeing a bigger improvement. So I think that's part of that task force thing and maybe what I would talk to with the community. I think that I can look at scores, and based on the scores without seeing the teacher there, I can tell you who's a first and second year teacher. I was not a good first and second year teacher along with everyone else in this room. It's a really difficult job and it's a struggle. That's not because first and year teachers are bad at their job. It's because it takes some finesse and it takes a while to learn your craft. When you have the turnover and you are dealing with new teachers constantly, that's something where you're going to see it affect overall academic performance. You just are.
I would like to add to this too. I have 3 kids in this district. I don't look at my kids as a 69.5% child, right? I think my child's scoring is a well above proficient student in life. I think that what we're determining or what we're looking at is there are areas where we can continue to improve learning, so that way we are teaching and we are assessing and we're able to do those things. I think that, Jill, do you remember what our kindergartner told us yesterday? Unprovoked.
Yeah, you show grit when things are hard.
You show grit when things are hard. And they're working in room. This is a kindergarten voice, little girl who told us this. And the first thing that popped to my head is the conversation that we're having all the time that we also heard at MSBA, and that is, what are we doing besides pay that impacts teacher retention? And for me, it is the joy that you see from grit when you're doing things that are hard. And things that we're doing here are hard is we're trying to make generational change in a community where these scores are pretty consistent with what we've had for 30 or 40 or 50 years. For me, it is the attendance piece, and I talked a lot about the funding piece because that's kind of what we've been focusing on. And Dr. Miller spoke a lot on the attendance piece when it comes to the learning. Right now, that is one of the biggest things that impacts our learning. If you look at the districts that are consistently scoring high both in growth and achievement, they have better attendance than we do. We have to continue to do better at that. That's something that we can do as a board and as administration and families to advocate for our kids being here. Because what the data that I just showed you in my superintendent's report is 20% of our kids are missing more than 17 days. They're here less than 90% of the time. I know in my 6th grader and 8th grader, it's a little different in 5th grade. When my 6th grader and 8th grader miss a day of math or science, they're behind for a week. I can't imagine missing more than 3 days every 2 weeks, which is essentially what that is. And so advocate for this score is not a reflection of who our kids are. It's a reflection that as leadership, we need to do a better job of giving the tools and resources to our teachers to be able to meet those needs, and the tools and resources of those teachers to be able to identify those needs, because we have good kids and we have good families. We need to continue to advocate for getting those kids to school every single day. If you're sick, don't come. But if you can be there and it's a choice or you have a choice, come to school. We have amazing things happening in this district that are not happening in districts that score well better, because honestly, they don't have to. They show up and they're able to be proficient or advanced. And so I would just say that there are things that we're doing to do better, and that is going to be something that we're working on through the strategic plan, but also things that we can continue to do as a school district, as a board, as leadership, and partnership with our families. Come to school every day. We're going to do our job. If we can get them here every day, we're going to continue to meet that need and growth, because it's not just growing a year anymore. We have a gap that we have to fill, right? And we've had this conversation. In order to fill that gap, you got to grow beyond a year. And so what are we doing to support those teachers in there? And when you do hard things and you see results, they get the joy from that grit as well. Because the first thing I thought of when I heard that kindergartner was seeing the joy on a teacher's face when they're working so hard and they see a little bit of growth. And we hear those stories, and those anecdotal stories are important as leadership to share those. So that would be my story, and that's what I tell people when they ask, is yes, we need to do a better job. No, we're not proud of the product that we're putting on an assessment. Yes, we're proud of what's happening in the classroom, and we can continue to do better in that area as well.
And a giant celebration, again, I keep saying this, it's our teachers. You want to talk about grit? Like, they show it more than any other profession out there. Like, our teachers are showing up and they're doing the work. So again, I think if there's any reason to be frustrated with this, is that I know teachers are going to look at this and they're going to self-reflect, and this is not a reflection of who we are. It rarely is. So that would be my message.
And I think that's so important for them to hear you say that up here in front of everybody, so that way they know, like, that their work is valued.
Absolutely.
By the district, and even though they're going to look at it and they probably get it at their classroom level, I suppose, I don't know, they probably take it personal too, and
every teacher wants to see their kids successful, so yeah.
And we as families, we have to do our part as well and get our kids to school and lean in.
Now, I think if someone in the community asked me, I'd say, make sure your child is at school, but also make sure they come ready to learn. That's why they're there. The focus should be on learning. I feel like sometimes everything is focused on everything else, and that's what we want. We want kids to learn. And we could try to compare ourselves to other districts. I don't think we should do that. I think we should ask ourselves, we should ask ourselves, are we the best that we can be? That's what we should do every day, so. That's it.
All right. Ready? Good? Very good. All right. Moving on to our final item is the annual MSBA conference review. Dr. Bolton.
So I know that some of us were able to make it down for several sessions. Some of us were able to sneak down for one or two. And I know some emergency things came up for some of us. I just wanted to create the opportunity here, much as we did last year, to share anything that you may have learned from the MSBA conference that you took away from the school, from someone who presented about a specific thing. I was really impressed with some of the things that are going on at Fort Osage and what they're doing kind of just outside the classroom and opportunities they've created. But anybody have anything they'd like to share about what they learned, insightful things?
I attended this session with you, Mark. Jason Snodgrass, the superintendent at Fort Osage. He really has partnered with the community and with real-world learning for all students. And maybe these are some students that wouldn't typically be successful in the classroom, but they are being successful now. They facilitate a coffee shop called Campus Grounds. I mean, they're solely responsible for that, and they've partnered with the roastery for that. And I always reflect, I'm thinking, okay, we have the mug that's empty out across from the McDonald's, and I'm thinking, dubious claims, could we not have a coffee shop there? I start thinking about all these things. They received a grant for a new building, and now they're able to have other classes there. They offer internships too. They have semester-long internships. They do have 4 days in the field that they go out and do the internship, and then 1 day in class. They also have some client-based projects. They have a 15,000 square foot warehouse that they now have. They have a full day school setting in there. And they do all types of things, like they were building furniture is what they talked about there. So I just think we can take things beyond the classroom even, and maybe some of these scores would go up if we make the learning real world for them. I don't know, but lots of exciting things. We also, I think all of us went to the Senate Bill 727. We went to that together, those of us that went. The one thing that came out of that I remember, beginning in 26-27, and Independence just had this on the ballot last week. In order to have a 4-day week, you must have voter approval for that now. So if anyone was curious about that. Also, starting in full year of the 2026, they talked about teacher salaries. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully a master's with 10 years would be across the state at least a minimum of 46,000, if I recall that correct. I don't know. It was interesting.
Just in general, kind of very informative. Attended some of the sessions that Jill mentioned, and also several on like AI. There was one presented by Lindbergh, I think a St. Louis school district, and he was the AI coordinator, and how they're using it in their schools to do a lot of cool and interesting and exciting things. I don't think we have time tonight, but that's something I'd be interested to discuss more, is how we can potentially use AI to create better, outcomes for our students. There was one, I had an opportunity to be in the area on Saturday, so I also went to one on, it's like AI for board members, which I found interesting.
That Senate Bill 727 too, that talks about teacher salaries and funding, they did mention in that parents and teachers have more impact than your superintendent. So, I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember?
Third.
So, any parents out there and any teachers with Senate Bill 727? Reach out to your lawmakers.
And then I attended, in addition to the 727, Brett and I attended turning red lights into green lights, and it was more of a legal space, a legal conversation around different scenarios of which we as board members might encounter, and like how to make sure that we're being mindful of different things that could come our way, and how to like make sure that we're staying, mitigating risk and staying compliant with the law. Which I thought there were some interesting ones that kind of made us go, so it was good, a lot of learning on that one. And then there was another one that I attended, which is a resource that I'll share with each of you, and it's a QR code, it's a website that they are putting together that has research for the state of Missouri and where our school falls. It's every school in the district and why things are the way they are. It's you have to like research, you have to like data in order to enjoy it, but there's also, it's kind of made for everybody. There's the data piece, but they'll take that exact same scenario of the topic, absenteeism is one of the topics. And then it'll put it into like an infographic, a one-pager, so it's more digestible for the non-data loving, individuals. And so I'll share it across the board and with the cabinet. And if you guys think it's helpful, you can share with your administration.
All right. Anybody else? All right. You good? Done? Good. All right. With that, thanks everybody for coming out this evening, and with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Jill. Second. Second by Darren. All those in favor? And that passes 7-0. Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, Dr.
Jill. Okay.